all good.
Okay. All right. Guys, just want to welcome on here Jeremy Kelley, Maine football alumni. Played here from 2006 to 2010. Was a 2020 graduate of the University of Maine. One of my teammates was here my entire time as a player here and played with Coach Brown as well. And someone that benefited from the experience here at the University of Maine, and then went on to have a career in the NFL, and then has really taken advantage of all his connections and his network, and gone on to have a career in the NFL, working in the front office for the Buffalo Bills and now with the Carolina Panthers. So, someone who's from Buffalo, New York. So, again, a Northeast guy that's from the footprint, familiar with what you guys experience, and sat in your seats as well. So excited to have Jeremy on here, a loyal supporter of you guys, and someone that's excited to be on here as well. So welcome, Jeremy.
It's great to be on, fellas. How we doing? Good afternoon.
Yeah, that's great.
Oz, I appreciate you. Vito, I appreciate you. It's good to be with my brothers.
Of course.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. We're gonna kick it to Mike. Mike's gonna kind of take over, and he'll get some questions to you. And excited to have you on. Thanks, Jeremy.
Awesome, brother.
Excellent, Jeremy. Yeah, thanks again for coming on, brother. I'm so excited. Guys, just a reminder of the format. We'll do 20, 25 minutes of questions with Jeremy, and then we'll kick it to Q&A. Get those questions ready. Any questions you have for Jeremy at the end, we'll get to those. Brother, thank you, man. I'm so excited. There's so many places we could start, but I think, one of the most important that I'd love to hear about, I know our guys would love to hear about, is tell us about your journey to Maine and then your journey at Maine.
Yeah, so fellas, first, it's an honor, man. I'm gonna tell you what, there's gonna be a day that you guys are sitting on the other side of these screens, and Coach or and Vito, somebody's gonna be calling you, and you're gonna take great pride in it. You're gonna move everything in your schedule to make it happen. Just know that I'm coming to you from somebody that's sat in your seat, right? I can assure you that. And experience everything that you guys are experiencing right now. And I'm hoping, and I'm sure, I know coaches working to leave it better than they found it, that you guys are already in a much better situation than we were. But with that, like they said, man, born and raised Buffalo, New York, Western New Yorker, blue collar, West Seneca. I'm not sure if we got any Buffalo, Rochester guys in here or whatnot, upstate New Yorkers, but chose Maine because it fit the mold that I came from, man. It came from a school that bled blue. We didn't have everything. We just kind of strapped it up and went to work. And when I took all of my visits, UNH, who was number one of the country, Youngstown State, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Man, I got to Maine, and it was a no-brainer, to be honest with you, right? And we were able to look at the roster of guys that we had, the Mike DeVitos, the Darren Stones, the list goes on of All-Americans and guys that were going to go on to play in the NFL. And for me, that was a goal. That was a goal. That was why I thought you played college football at the time, not knowing better, right? I mean, education was always the thing, but ultimately my eyes were set on that. And so when I got there, it was a brotherhood, man. I'm gonna tell you, I took other trips, and the schools just weren't as close. The connections just weren't as close on the team, and that was a selling point for me, man. I wanted to go to a team where it felt like family. Wanted to go to a campus that was cohesive. I could, big enough where I would see different people, but small enough where I could walk anywhere I needed to be and enjoy the college lifestyle. So UMaine was awesome. Coach Cos was amazing in terms of program and tradition and what we were doing. So, man, you guys feel that, that. That's why you strapped up. That's why you're in one direction. And for me, it was it's not always rainbows, but I wouldn't change it for the world. And here we are today. So that was it, man. I'm sure we'll get into the other details. We don't need to talk about, my journey at UMaine was certainly unique. I'd probably say I might have one of the most unique stories probably to come through there. But all in all, man, it's given me so much. It's given me so much. And I'm telling you right now, wherever you are in your journey, take this minute to stop and to think about what it's given you already.
Yeah, that's great, Jeremy. And there's so much we can get into there, but I do want to get to a number of different places. A lot of these guys on this call do have aspirations to play in the league, and you were one of those guys that were able to make that jump. Can you talk
Mhm.
about the transition out of UMaine and into the NFL and what that looked
Mhm.
like and sort of what that took to get to where you got to?
Yeah, for sure. Right. Look, we get a roster full of guys that are freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, redshirt transfers. Right. You guys are all at different stages right now. But if that is your goal, I'm gonna tell you right now, you will all have a better opportunity if you start right now backing each other. You will all have a better opportunity holding each other accountable. You will all increase your chances by challenging one another. I can tell you that right now. And so, because somebody's going to be the standard, an upperclassman here is going to get their opportunity next year. All right. I got guys like Vito to look up to, and it was great. I'm not chopping up, am I? You guys got me? Okay, awesome. Vito, you were really still there for a second, man. I thought I lost you. But with that, I will say, the transition comes, but before we get to that, man, I'm telling you right now, be where your feet are. And I say this all the time to college kids who want to go to, or high school kids that want to go to college, and college kids that want to go pro. You earn your money and opportunity right now. You earn it right now. When you're in your workouts, when you're being intentional in the weight room, when you're being intentional in the classroom, creating habits, when you're intentional with your recovery, you learn and train to be a pro right now. And by the time that pro day comes and you got to put on and perform for the scouts and have the interviews, you've already done the work to be polished. It doesn't just happen. It comes now through the 4 and 5 years of work that you have. And I'm telling you, for me, and I'll say it myself, but I think, you could probably ask somebody like Jordan, who was my roommate, who we worked with, you know, despite the ups and downs. I think there was one thing Jordan probably always saw of me is that I was going to show up to work. I was training to be a pro, regardless of what was happening around me. I was training at UMaine to be a pro. And that's what you guys have to do now. If that is your aspiration, guess what? It's not going to be everybody on this call, man. That's okay. I promise you, you guys are going to go on to be successful in other endeavors. But right now is where you create your opportunity before they even knock at the door.
Jeremy, let's dial in. Before we move on, I do want to maybe tease out some details because that's a great point. So when I think of my time here at UMaine, I always tell people I was so fortunate because there were a number of NFL players that were 3 or 4 years older than me, and so I got to see what it meant to train like a pro coming in as a freshman in college. And so
That's
when
right.
you say that, right, train like a pro now, what
Yeah.
practically speaking, what does that look like?
Well, first, I'm gonna go ahead and back it up. I'm gonna go ahead and tell Mike DeVito's story, fellas. So I'll never forget. So I come in as a 6'5", 210-pound receiver. I thought I was in pretty good shape. I was fortunate to have somebody in my life that had played pro, and so I was well trained as a high school freshman, right, or as a college freshman. But unfortunately, we redshirted. Actually, I shouldn't say unfortunately. Fortunately, I redshirted, and I had some extra time in the weight room. And Vito is senior, upperclassman. He only got to work out twice a week, but he's going in there getting extra lifts, right? So I'm in there on my lift day, and I walk in, fellas, and he is a lot bigger than he is now. Shirt halfway up, and my man is a D tackle doing pull ups like a wide receiver. And I'll never forget looking at him and being like, I'm playing with professional athlete. Like that's what a professional athlete looks like. One, he's a freak. All right. And that's not supposed to be happening right now with that level of ease. But two, he's in here getting work on an extra day in the middle of the season because he chose to. That's a pro. That's a pro. When I use I use the acronym VIP. Everybody know what VIP means? Very important person to some, right? I switched that up. It's about vision, it's about intent, and it's about purpose. So every single day when you're going to work, before you get to that field, man, you got a vision for what you are going to do that day, man. Vision, catching the ball, you're going through your routes, you're going through your motions, you're going through, your hand placement, its alignment, whatever it means. You have a vision of what you want to accomplish that day. And then you work it intentionally and you do it with a purpose. Period. And that is something that I held on to day in and day out. And you just work vision, intent, purpose And when you do those things, that is being a professional. That's being a professional. When I was with the Denver Broncos, it was OTAs, and there's different stages, phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1, can't have a ball on the field. You're kind of just working out. You're kind of just going through the motions. Phase 2, you might be able to get to a football. Coaches aren't around yet. Those just player-led workouts. It was phase 1, and all Peyton Manning had was a towel. And when I tell you that, you would have thought that that towel was the play action on the last drive of a Super Bowl drive. Every single motion that this man made was with intention. And while everybody else is jogging back to the huddle, he's standing there tall in a pocket, just envisioning his reads. Ain't no ball on the field. And the thing that stuck out to me was that's a level of intentionality that makes it a professional football player. That's why he's the GOAT. And that there's no reason that we all, on a day-to-day basis, can't implement those little practices into what we do. So Coach, when I say train like a pro, that's the mentality. Those are the habits that encompass a professional.
Yeah, that's excellent, man. That's excellent. Talk to me more about, so talk to me about the NFL and your journey in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
What separated you that allowed you, I know you talked about that, but
Yeah,
specifically,
yeah.
what separated you from the other guys that allowed you to have that career? And talk to me about sort of the journey through the NFL and what that was like.
Yeah. Well, look, man. I'm like I said, I'm no different than a lot of you guys sitting right here, right? I looked at the roster, man. I mean, you got guys from Rochester, you got guys from Charlotte. Shout out to my man. I think so. I know rosters are changing now, but I think we got a cat from Charlotte on the roster, right? Like we all come from different places, but at the end of the day, we all ended up at the same place because we all know how to work. If you're at the University of Maine, you either took a left or a right up 95 to a place that you can't pass through, and you know about work. I know y'all just got done with winter workouts up there and crawling over to the field house when it's dark and, everybody kind of just defrosting in their lockers until it's time to go hit that bubble, right? I've been there, mat drills, you know what I mean? But I embraced it. I promise you, I embraced that. And there was a separator there. There was a separator there. And so for me, there were those moments in college, to be honest with you, that I realized nobody can outwork me that took me to the professional level. So, a little bit of my story at UMaine, I was a wide receiver, but I'll tell you, I left UMaine as a defensive end, right? And a special teams captain as a guy who wasn't a starter for 4 years. You might ask yourself, how the hell do you play defensive end and then go play wide receiver at the professional football level? Work and belief. And so I believe so much in my craft. I believe so much in my game, and I worked it, and I worked it, and I worked it, and I would not be denied. And I knew when my opportunity was going to come that I'd be able to capitalize on that, and I did. And so I started my career in the CFL my first year with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I spent a season there and had some success on the field early and was able to play and to get active, right? And then shoot, I think I might have played as many games as a wideout in the professional as I did my senior year of college. But then there was a coaching change. Some things happened, right? First time ever getting cut in my life. Go to Arena League. Got to stay active. Got to find a way to play. Got to hit a field. Can't just be sitting at home, man. Go to the Arena League and really got to put my skills on showcase, right? And for me, it was by any means necessary. Wherever you were going to let me get a cup of coffee and play ball, I'm there. Where's my helmet, right? You just wanted opportunity. And so I did that. But again, it was right back to work. Game ain't changed. All right. So I got 2 years out after the NFL lockout, Canada, arena ball. Right. NFL came knocking. I was working at a LA Fitness, sitting with a client. Boom. Indianapolis Colts called me. Show up. Head coach Chuck Pagano, GM, handful of scouts, nobody else but me. It was time to go. And I was so confident that day. And I was so happy that there was no one else there and it was all eyes on me because I had been putting in the work. I had put in the work, man. And so that began kind of my NFL journey. I don't call it a professional career because a career is something that somebody builds and receives promotion and is stable. And I was an NFL journeyman, right? I really refer to it as my NFL experience, right? A lot of people, I joke, we say a cup of coffee in the league. Well, shit, it's the best cup of coffee I ever had. And so, I was able to really, take a huddle with some great quarterbacks, as I mentioned, the Peyton Mannings, the Andrew Lucks of the world, the Matt Hasselbacks. Right, there was a lot of really talented guys, and I would say one thing as a FCS guy, when you go into those locker rooms, and even right now at UMaine, maybe some of you feel like you don't belong, or maybe you do feel like you're supposed to be at a higher level. We all got a story at UMaine as to why we didn't go play the FBS school. Seen it before, bro. I can probably walk in that locker room and point out the same characters that I played with. All right, we all got a story. But at the end of the day, who was going to work? And I can tell you right now at the professional level, I played with guys at UMaine that were better athletes than those that were in NFL locker rooms. There were just guys that had it right here, 6 inches between the ears, and then there was guys that wanted to work. There was guys that love football, and that's a difference maker. All right, Vito, you can speak to it as well. Coach Stevens, you can speak to it as well. You've been around pros. So I'm probably not telling you anything that they haven't already. But I will say that at the end of the day, when you peel back all the layers and the logos, it really comes down to who loves the craft, man, and who really loves this game, right? And who wants to make it a part of their life in every aspect, because that's what it takes. That's what
Mm.
it takes.
Yeah, Jeremy, I appreciate that, man. It's so incredibly true. And um, we're moving quick here. So I do want to talk about at the Division I level, at the NFL level, given that whether it be 4 or 5 years at the D1 level or however long you play in the NFL, eventually the game ends.
Yeah.
And this game is all consuming, right? And I know for so many of us, I don't know what the stats are now, but when I retired, 75% of NFL players were broken divorced within 3 years of retiring from the league because
Mm-hmm.
the game is so consuming, right? And so talk to me about your transition. Really, it wasn't really out of the NFL, but from a player to now
Yeah.
to the next phase of life.
Well, it was, I'll save us a little time here. I'll go back actually and just buy you a little the back end of the journey. Fellas, as I mentioned, you go from CFL, Arena Football League, get my opportunity with the Indianapolis Colts. Again, now I'm signing with the Jacksonville Sharks, and then I get picked up for a workout with the Vikings, and then it's bouncing and bouncing and really trying to do whatever you can. So throughout that journey, I was already transitioning, and I was in 9 different cities within a matter of 6 years. So, Mike, as you talk about transition, I was constantly doing that because what happens in between, just like you guys, right? You're going to go from sophomore year to junior year, fall semester to winter semester. Somebody going home for the summertime. Maybe you need some money. You're trying to figure out: do I get a job? Do I do an internship? Do I just train and stay up at UMaine and do my? You're trying to figure these things out, and you got to do what's necessary to be the best athlete you can be. And so throughout that time, fortunately for me, I always had a forward thinking mindset. Ball was always first, but I knew that at the end of the day, there was something that I could leverage, and that was just my ability to connect with people, my skill set. I studied the kinesiology and biomechanics program there. I don't know if anybody's in KPE, but we had great professors, and Doc Leonard, and who I still keep in touch with today. Walt Abbott was there at that time. And so I knew I could always service somebody from a health and wellness standpoint, right? But at the end of the day, game was always priority, throughout all of those transitional pieces. But it was also my edge as a pro athlete, because now I knew that I could leverage my training abilities. I didn't need somebody there to coach me, right? So Mike, as we talk about transition, it really prepared me for what my journeys were going to be like at the professional level, and it wasn't foreign to me, right? So now I find myself, I go from the Denver Broncos to the Chicago Bears, and to my last contract in the CFL, and I started having medical issues. Sudden change. I'm sure y'all all had, sudden change period. Something comes out of the blue, man. I can't train like I need to. I'm going to the hospital. I'm getting IVs. Not sure what's going on with my body. And it got to a point where I realized, okay, I got to step away from this game. Something's got to happen, because right now, the next time I feel like I felt like I was gonna, that could be it. It was gonna tap out. I'm laying in the emergency room, like, hold on, something's really going on here. And so when we think about transition, it really starts with all the work that we just talked about, man. Now, you prepare yourself, it precedes performance. Now, you're never going to be ready for it, but you can prepare for it. And so, as I started the transition away from the game, you're going to go through a point where maybe there's a little bit of bitterness, maybe there's a little void, right? Surround yourself with support. Surround yourself with people that are going to lift you up. Find out what your hobbies are. Find out what you don't like. But at the end of the day, you got to keep moving forward. And so I did so, and I was fortunate to do so. I spent about 6 months outside the game, man, before I found I had a job opportunity with the Buffalo Bills. So in 2016, I know I jumped around a little bit there, but stay with me. So in 2016, I moved back home. I thought and believed. I said, you know what, man, let me get this urge to play out of my system. I want to be able to sit with my family. I want to be able to sit with my friends and have no ifs, ands, or buts on the table, and know that I laid it all out there. And my body responded, and I was getting ready to train. During that time, UMaine alumni Phil McGagan was a wide receiver coach for the Buffalo Bills. He had just gotten the job. And during that time, I didn't tell Phil this, but I had interviewed for a role that I never even applied for. Got a phone call from somebody in the front office who knew who I was, who knew my character, who knew what I wanted to get into, which was player engagement, said, JK, we want you to come and interview for this position. But 2 weeks later, I ended up getting a job offer, again, 6-7 months after I've been out of playing ball, a job offer I didn't apply for. That same week, Coach McGagan calls me, says, JK, I'm trying to get you in here for an interview, or I'm trying to get you in here for a workout, right? But you're under your retired contract in Canada. You got to call your agent to fix it. I said, Coach, you know they just offered me a job, right? Didn't even hesitate. JK, you're going to take that job. Congratulations. You're going to play. You're going to work in this league a lot longer than you can play. Right? Best advice I ever get. When I tell y'all right there in that moment, I don't even remember where I was standing. A level of peace came over me, and I was done playing. Didn't need to lace him up again. Right? And it was a great experience from a guy who was my coach at UMaine for a season or two. Right? And so, again, it goes back to preparation and being ready. That I was looking at two opportunities where I had an opportunity to work in the front office because I had done the work and I had stuck to character and I had been who I was. But now I get a receiver coach calling me saying, hey, man, might have an opportunity for you, because he knew I would be in shape. He knew I'd be ready, and he trusted me. Right. And you guys probably have coaches right now that, maybe some you like, maybe some you don't, but you never know where they're going to be, because they're working hard too. And they're working on themselves, and they want to be better, and they want to elevate, and you never know where they might be, right? Might call for a job one day, So it always ultimately comes back to you and how you prepare. So Vito, as we speak about transition, is really on each of you to prepare for it and prepare for the unknown, because it's going to come at an unexpected time. It's going to come at an unexpected time.
Yeah, that's great. And that's the key takeaway, right? Is like it's coming. And so you have to decide, are you going to prepare for it or not? And it's hard because as a player, as you
That's
mentioned
right.
at the beginning, you're obsessed with your craft, right?
That's right.
I remember being in college, being in the league and just thinking, I don't care about what next. I got to worry about this. But that's what leads to disaster, right? So you really handled
That's
that
right.
well, where these aren't mutually exclusive things. You can be obsessed with your craft and at the same time be preparing for what life after football. Um,
Absolutely.
so before we kick it to Q&A, let's talk about player engagement in the NFL. What is your role
Yeah.
entail? What do you do,
Yeah.
and what do you love about it?
Yeah, man. So, as I just alluded to, 2017, I got an opportunity with the Buffalo Bills, man. That was just unprecedented and perfect timing, because that's where I'm from, man. I got to go home and really get to share that NFL experience with my family and friends right there in my backyard. And I grew up 12 minutes from that stadium. And so, but even more so, I got to do it in a service capacity. And so I took a job as the alumni manager with the Buffalo Bills, and what that means is, I was really a blank slate to create a department that serviced and took care of our former players. and it opened the door, and I was able to do some really, really good things. And I had some people at the NFL recognize my work and abilities, and they sent my name to the Carolina Panthers. And so now I'm sitting here going into season 9, which is crazy to think that I've been on this side of the game a decade almost now. But as a director of Legends Affairs, well, what I do is I oversee all of our former player care and in our business integration. So what does that mean? Well, former players, when you retire from the NFL, it doesn't have to be official retirement, turning papers, nothing like that. But when you say, done with the game, I'm going to leave the game, whether you sign a rookie training camp contract or you play 12 years in the league, you sign an NFL contract and you're one of 30,000 roughly to ever play in this league in 105 years of football. I take a lot of pride in that. Not every career goes the same way, man, but to be part of such an elite fraternity, right? No different than University of Maine, like, man, it's special. And so we take care of those guys that have access to benefits through the NFLPA, through the clubs, through the NFL, and we, whether it be philanthropic efforts, community grants, whether it's medical and for their family, whether it's continuing education, guys that want to go on and continue to get their MBA or finish their degrees and they get reimbursed for it, right down to as simple things like rental car discounts and hotel discounts. But there's a ton of that. And so I kind of serve as a catalyst in pointing them into directions and building those relationships to help take care of them on that side. And there's also a crisis standpoint to that, right? It's people think that it's all glitz and glamours and appearances and Super Bowls and events but there's 1 a.m., 2 a.m. phone calls that, hey man, I'm gonna be evicted tomorrow and I got an 11-year-old daughter. I ain't got nowhere to go. And there's guys that have public facing incidents where, there's a media frenzy and we got to figure out how to best, mitigate and de-escalate situations that could be a lot worse. And that there's a lot of hats in that. But then on the business side at the NFL with the club, how do we use our guys to keep their value up, to keep them engaged from an appearance standpoint, through our marketing department, through our content teams, through partnerships and sponsorships, right? So how do we deploy our alumni and their personalities to the right things to bring value to our club, but also to keep them engaged and to give a couple of dollars to them and really create a culture that, hey, no matter what, when you're done with this game, we still got you, right? And so I think that right there hopefully piques a couple people's ears, because it's not just about coaching, it's not just about scouting, but there's a lot of opportunity within the NFL and within sports in general, in marketing, in business, and sponsorship and partnership. There's so many different avenues within sports and the world of sport that you guys can go into if you're thinking about that after work or after ball. So, Mike, a lot of different hats, but super fortunate. The NFL does a phenomenal job. I think we're really the leader in the player engagement space. And certainly from an alumni standpoint, we refer to our guys as legends, just because of those numbers that I shared with you before, right? Only 30,000 in 100 years of football, man. That's significant. That's significant. So, yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm
Jeremy.
happy to answer any questions on that too.
Yeah, guys, we'll start the Q&A section now. So if you have a question, you can just type Q or whatever into the chat, and I'll call on you guys as you type it in. You don't have to write the whole question in. But I do want to kick it off, JK. So what I hear you're saying is there's a lot of opportunity and roles in the NFL that don't require you to have played in the league. And so what does that look like for these guys that might want to get into various roles in the NFL, but didn't end up playing in the NFL? What is that path? Is that a viable option? And what sort
Absolutely.
of roles are there? You talk about your role and maybe some practical advice to get going and in those
Yeah,
spaces.
absolutely. Guys, like I said, man, look, don't wait. The biggest misconception that collegiate athletes have is that you have time. I do that next year when I'm a junior. I'll take care of that next year when I'm a senior and I want to start to look for things. Don't wait. You have more access now than ever before in the history of the world. Think about that. Right here in the palm of your hand. To CEOs, to presidents, to, whoever you want to. If there's a company that you're interested in, you can find the people that are hiring for that company. And so with that, I would say start to build your brand. Look, start to build your LinkedIn. Start to connect with people. Start to just reach out. Hey, can I get a 10-minute call in between your time to study or whatever it means? Just try something. So start to build those things out because ultimately, yes, you're a University of Maine football player, which is something to be said for it. But you're also the name on the back of that jersey, right? And you have to start to brand yourself and think about the avenues that you want to go once this game is over with. And so as it relates to football, maybe you look at the job boards and, if you're a senior or junior, you start to think about these things. Maybe you look at the job boards just to see what is out there. And maybe you look up, okay, hey, look, I see director of marketing position is open. Let me find out who the vice president of marketing is and maybe just reach out to them. I can assure you there's a lot of people that are impressed by that. I keep a full diversity of candidates and prospects, those that are still in college. Hey, look, I might need to come back to this person. They followed up with me 3 times. So I'm going to be set for that, right? Because most people don't, right? So you just want to start to think um, about doing the things that most people won't do, whether it's a handwritten letter, whether it's a follow-up email. It's really that simple. Right? It's really that simple. So as you start to think about your interest, as you start to think about what you may want to do after work, man, Google those people at the cool companies or Google those people that are in your hometown and start within your network. Hey, when I come back this summer, can I sit down and get an internship or just a job shadow for 2 days or 3 days, right? Or a week, right? And maybe you find out you don't like it. But those are, again, I think those are great habit builders. And I think those are good reps for you to get in terms of connecting with people. Because at the end of the day, no matter what, it's going to come down to relationships, man. It comes down to you. How well can you connect with people? How well can you put your best foot forward and show them who you are as a person for them to say, you know what, I think I got somebody for this opportunity, right? And it just takes little simple things, man. Don't let that intimidate you by any means. It just takes a little bit of time, an hour on a weekend of sitting down and putting some thought and writing out a list and going forward from there.
Yeah, Jeremy, I just wanted to interject here. I think that's all really valid point is just having the ability to connect some dots of people and people you have some sort of a connection with. You might not know them directly, but someone else who does.
Mm-hmm.
Who are some of the just so you can speak on them a little bit, but like some of the main alums that maybe you've connected with, whether in
Yeah.
the or work in some capacity in the NFL.
Yeah, right. And I use the alumni network. That's exactly why we're here right now on this call, man. So, I think for me, Phil McGagan was one guy that I kept in touch with. Obviously, he was my coach for a season. I was able to build a relationship with him, and he went on to different colleges before he found himself in the National Football League. So, you have a UMaine Hall of Famer in Phil McGagan. Brian Gain was a name who's a GM multiple times within the NFL and is respected VP with the Buffalo Bills right now. You've got guys like Brent Nakara, who are the VP of security for the Houston Texans, UMaine alumni. There's guys that aren't even in the NFL, right? But they are doing really, really well for themselves, man. The Alex Goyens of the world, the Jared Gomes, guys who had stellar careers in University of Maine. Marcus Williams, right down in the Boston area. I mean, there's a ton of former players that aren't too far from y'all. All right, that when you're going home or you're going back to the tri-state area or wherever that is, ask coach. Do a little bit of research, right? Ask somebody, hey, coach, do we know anybody in the Allentown, PA area? Do we know anybody down in Maryland? Wherever that might be for you, but ask them. And there's a good chance that we can tap in with somebody that played in those areas that's doing work now professionally that will be glad to have you. I can tell you right now, me and Anthony Catrone. Anthony Catrone played with Vito. Vito, was he here? I think it was a year after you. He was probably an '08 grad, '07 grad.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And so, Anthony Catrone had a workout, Jacksonville Jaguar invite, I should say, was with the Jacksonville Jaguars, unfortunate injury. Anthony Catrone is doing phenomenal right now. He owns his own business. Now he's working for Stryker Medical. Man, through a quick conversation, once Trevor Bates got done his playing days, Had a conversation with Anthony Control, and Trevor was working with Stryker Medical. And we always talk about it. If we see University of Maine football on a resume, you're automatically getting getting an interview because we know what you've been through. If we see 4 years on there and you came through UMaine, I know you got something to you that's gonna be different than everybody else. So leverage your access. Leverage your access. I promise you, it's there. Maybe you might not feel like it, but it is just one phone call away. It's one question to coach. It's one question to Mike, and saying, "Hey, look, do we know anybody?" And I promise you, there's probably a good chance we do.
Hmm. Yeah, we've seen that. I mean, we've seen that over the past couple of years with our graduates plugging them into the network, and they get
Yeah,
right going.
no
Eli,
doubt.
Eli has a question.
Perfect. How you doing, Jeremy? I was just wondering, what's one piece of advice about leadership that you picked up throughout your football career?
Mm. So that's a great question. I think leadership is, I think about it in so many ways, man. And I think oftentimes guys, and you can feel free to raise your hand if you feel like you ever struggle with it. I know I did. I've always felt like even though I put in the work, there was always a level of like imposter syndrome, right? But I'll say this as a man, if you feel it, share it, right? And if y'all can establish that level of accountability to each other and welcome that, if you feel it, share it. There's a level of leadership that comes with that. If you see somebody not doing something, if you see um, maybe somebody struggling with something, you want to help them up. If you feel it, share it. And I think that really exemplifies leadership because there's so many of us that don't want to speak up when we see something as wrong. Somebody cutting corners, right? So I think when you think about that word leadership, it ultimately comes to a level of accountability, man. Who's gonna say the thing that nobody wants to say? Who's gonna do the thing that nobody else will do? I don't care if there's a water bottle in the locker room, if there's towels not cleaned up, right? It's not this big grandiose speech before every game. It's the everyday, the guy that does it right every day, man. The guy that calls it out every day, right? Um, Today's compromises are tomorrow's standards. I'll say that again. Today's compromises are tomorrow's standards, right? And that's leadership to me, man. That is, there's no cutting corners. We can't stop short of that line, right? And the guys that speak up when we see it, that's leadership.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. That was great, man. And maybe we'll do one more and then land the plane. So let's get Malcolm and then we'll finish there.
What's going on, Jeremy? I saw that you either got your MBA or you're currently in the process of getting your MBA right
Mm,
now.
mm,
Yeah, I wanted to know what
yeah,
prompted you to go back to school to get that and kind of how your experience is in that class, and then what have you learned in your program that you've been
yeah,
able to translate to your off the field role?
yeah, man. Great question. I'm actually I'm about to take a final as soon as we get off this call. The next 3 hours are gonna be locked up. Um, Honestly, Coach Cos used to always say start and finish. And I started my MBA when I was at UMaine in the biomechanics program, and obviously I went on to play, right, and started my journeys everywhere, and I felt like I was pretty successful. So I didn't really have a need to go back, but I always wanted to, man, because I started it. And so getting down here to the Carolina Panthers, man, the opportunity was presented to me at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, at Keenan Flagler Business School, which is a top 15 program in the nation. And fortunate that the club's picking up a big piece of that tab for me, which is nice. And so I was just I guess tapped as a rising leader. And so again, it goes back to being who you are and taking care of the things that you need to take care of, man, and people will see it. So um, it was unprompted, but when the opportunity presented itself, I said, man, this is I have to do it. I have to do it. So if I want to grow and fill the gaps as a professional, right, I know where I do have a skill set. and that I am excelling, but I also know where I need to be better, right? When you're talking about executive level of business development, from a financial standpoint, from a culture and people standpoint, there's things that, we don't know, that we don't know, right? So that was really a matter of, hey, I had a great opportunity. I knew I started this, so I wanted to finish it. It came to my plate, so I took it, man, and just trying to be better, man. Just want to learn. So I'm in it just like y'all right now, man. In these books, when I'm during my off time, man. So, but I will say this. There was an acclimating period, right? I've been out of school for graduated in 2010, right? So 15 years. I will say this. Um, Once you get through the little period of like acclimating back into learning and studying and whatnot, man, this is no different than, going to work every day and then having school. It's no different than going to practice. So I told myself, we already did this, right? I've already managed this level of workload when we were at Maine, man, right? You got study hall, you got practice, you got film session, you got school. You guys are already doing it. So um, if you can find a way to just correlate your experiences that you're already having to new challenges, you'll be able to tackle it. You'll be good. You'll be good. Great question. Appreciate that, man. Wish me luck on this test.
That's awesome. Yeah, appreciate you. Yeah, good luck for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Jeremy, we're just past 5:45, brother. Thank you so much for your time, for the wisdom. I know all our guys are, I love that. I know our guys are incredibly grateful and so many takeaways, man. So thank you for what you're doing. Continue to represent the college and continuing to give back too. So we appreciate you a ton, brother. And maybe hopefully we'll see you up on campus
Yeah.
during the season.
Yeah, I certainly hope to, fellas. Look, we got a handful of guys at different universities down here too. We're always talking trash, so I look forward to watching you guys this year. Coach knows I probably met some of y'all last year down at the I think it was Elon and the Campbell the year before that. But I tell you right now, guys are watching you guys, man. We see what you're doing. We pay attention. We care deeply about the university. So, you ever need us, reach out to one of these guys. Call on us. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm not just talking jobs. Like you just have a rough week, whatever that might be. But we got you, man. So bear down
Awesome, Jeremy. Anybody wants to connect with Jeremy, shoot me a message. And
for sure.
thank you so much, brother. We appreciate you, man. Thank you for your time, Jeremy.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks, Mike.
Good luck on the test, brother.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you.